waste of time to engage in debates without first achieving personal enlightenment. As our journey into the world of philosophy continues, we find ourselves at a critical turning point. This is the moment where philosophy, once an abstract exploration of the cosmos, morphed into a more human-centric pursuit. Our guide through this transformation is none other than Socrates, the man who dared to shift the focus of philosophy from the cosmos to the individual. In the words of Socrates, the foundation of my philosophy is man's knowledge of himself. He believed that the subject and ultimate goal of philosophy should be to understand human nature, the primary source of our actions, behaviors, and ways of thinking. Socrates posited that true knowledge could only be achieved through self-understanding, and that the real philosopher is the one who practices a philosophy of life. Unlike his predecessors, who focused on celestial phenomena and the universe, Socrates made philosophy a living dialogue. He believed in studying issues that arise from question and answer, a method that brought philosophy into daily conversations and made it accessible to all. This shift from cosmic to human-centric philosophy marked a revolutionary moment in the history of philosophical thought. It was a courageous step towards making philosophy more relevant to everyday life. This is the essence of Socratic philosophy, a philosophy of life, dialogue, and the study of questions and answers. As we delve deeper into the life and teachings of Socrates, we're reminded of his groundbreaking contribution, the humanization of philosophy. He brought philosophy down from the heavens and into the streets, the homes, and the hearts of people. Let's keep this in mind as we continue our journey through the philosophical streets of Athens. As we continue our exploration, we land on a pivotal moment in the history of philosophy. Here in Scene 2, we will witness the metamorphosis of philosophy from an abstract cosmic discipline to a more human-centric approach. The story begins with the first philosophers, such as Thales, who devoted their intellectual pursuits to understanding the universe and natural phenomena. But as time progressed, a man named Socrates emerged, drastically shifting the philosophical landscape. Unlike his predecessors, Socrates believed that philosophy should focus on humans and their surroundings, a revolutionary idea that marked the birth of human-centric philosophy. Socrates, the man who brought philosophy into our homes and daily lives, had a clear goal. As he traversed the streets of Athens, his primary aim was not to accumulate wealth or prestige, but to inspire both the young and old to seek the perfection of the soul. He believed that the true value of a person was not in their physical attributes or material possessions, but in their moral and intellectual virtues. This idea is vividly expressed in one of Plato's dialogues, where Socrates declares, "I have practically no goal as I cross the streets, except to convince you, young and old, that you should not give importance to bodies and wealth, but that you should work as much as possible for the perfection of the soul." This shift in focus from the cosmos to the individual was nothing short of revolutionary. It marked the beginning of a new era in philosophy, one characterized by introspection and self-exploration. This era was to be championed by Socrates, the philosopher who dared to make philosophy human-centric, shifting its focus from the cosmos and celestial phenomena to human affairs. In conclusion, the transformation of philosophy from a discipline focused on the universe to one centered on humans and their experiences was a monumental shift that forever changed the course of philosophical thought. This shift, pioneered by Socrates, brought philosophy down from the heavens and into the homes and hearts of people, making it more accessible and relevant to everyday life. So, as we delve deeper into the life and philosophy of Socrates, let us remember his revolutionary contribution, the humanization of philosophy. As the Athenian sun rose, painting the city in hues of gold, Socrates would embark on his daily routine. His philosophy was not confined within the walls of a classroom. Instead, it thrived in the bustling markets and vibrant streets of Athens. Every morning, like clockwork, Socrates would stroll to the agora, the heart of Athenian public life, where the city's social, political, and commercial activities converged. There, amidst the chatter of tradesmen and the echoes of haggling, Socrates would engage the Athenians in profound discussions. His topics were not limited to the celestial and the abstract, but instead delved into life, death, the universe, and nature. Socrates was not particular about his audience. The rich, the poor, the young, and the old all found themselves ensnared in his intellectual web. His approach was simple yet effective. Rather than preaching from a pedestal, he would initiate a dialogue, questioning the Athenians about their beliefs and asking them to justify their choices. He would often start by asking them about the meaning of evil and why we should choose good. These discussions were not brief exchanges, but extended dialogues, lasting hours, just as they did in the French cafes centuries later. Socrates did not charge for these intellectual exchanges. He believed he was on a divine mission that transcended material compensation. His objective was not merely to impart knowledge, but to stimulate thought, to inspire introspection, and to help minds give birth to truth. The streets of Athens were his classroom, and every passerby was a potential student. This was Socrates, the philosopher who brought philosophy down to earth, making it accessible to all. As we delve into the life of Socrates, we find ourselves transported to the bustling city of Athens in 470 BC. A child named Socrates is born into a humble family. His father, a sculptor, and his sharp-tongued, irritable mother, Zatippe, could hardly have imagined the profound impact their son would have on the world. Socrates was far from the ideal of Greek beauty. With his short stature, unusual walk, and eyes that moved in a circular manner, he was often the subject of mockery. But his physical appearance was the least interesting thing about him. His true charm lay in his mind, his intelligence, and his insatiable curiosity. Every morning, Socrates would stroll to the markets, engaging people in discussions about life, death, the universe, and nature. He was not picky about his audience. The rich, the poor, the young, the old, all were welcome to listen and participate. Socrates did not charge money for his talks and lessons. He believed he was on a divine mission, one that did not require material compensation. His wife Zatippe, known for her sharp tongue and bad temper, was a constant challenge. When asked why he married her, Socrates replied that horse trainers must try to tame the most unruly animals. This was the essence of Socrates, turning every adversity into an opportunity for learning and growth. Though Socrates was often misunderstood, ridiculed, and even persecuted, he remained undeterred. He believed that his task was to help every human being turn inward in search of virtue and wisdom, to prioritize the interests of the state over personal gain. This was the message of Socrates, to awaken the noblest in us through the pursuit of wisdom and virtue. In the next scene, we will explore how Socrates brought philosophy down to earth, making it a subject of everyday life, rather than a lofty, inaccessible discipline. Imagine philosophy descending from the heavens to find its place on earth, even venturing into our bedrooms, as Jean-Paul Sartre would say. Socrates insisted that philosophy should study life, customs, and the good and the bad. In Plato's Phaedrus, or Beauty, a passage illustrates Socrates' role in the history of philosophy. Plato tells us that Socrates, while strolling with a friend who was gazing at the sky, asked if he believed in the Greek stories of Boreas, the god who sends the winds. The friend meant to suggest that a scientific study of climate was far more valuable than an ancient myth. Socrates, however, replied that he had no time to ponder such matters or chase after them. He confessed, "I am still unable to know myself, and it would be absurd for me to look into external things when I have not yet understood my own inner workings." Socrates posed questions to people, prodding them to reflect on their circumstances and contemplate the fundamental perspectives that shaped their actions and words. One could say that Socrates sought to awaken them. He didn't want people to parrot what they had heard without understanding it. His provocative conversations in the markets aimed to elicit what we might call personal knowledge from those he engaged. Existential philosophers would later try to follow his method of questioning. Socrates likened himself to a stingray, his questions paralyzing his interlocutors and stripping ordinary things of their usual masks. His student, Theaetetus, exclaimed after Socrates made him admit his ignorance, "By the gods, Socrates, I am astounded by these things, and at times I get dizzy." Socrates jovially and simply replied, "Indeed, this very state is what distinguishes a philosopher. This astonishment alone is the origin of philosophy." Socrates endeavored to provide his listeners with a simple method to discern the truth for themselves. He insisted that anyone with a curious mind or a desire to scrutinize prevailing beliefs could engage another person in a conversation on the city streets and arrive at an innovative idea. Socrates habitually started his questions by confessing his profound ignorance on the subject, luring the other into a discussion, directing their gaze towards the real difficulty of the matter, and then delving deeper. This was how he encouraged others to tread the path of philosophy without the need for a teacher's chair, without giving advice or orders. His brilliance lay in his ability to lead the interlocutor to the truth independently. Socrates saw virtues as manifestations of a single essence, knowledge, which equates to virtue. If a person must admit that they cannot grasp all aspects of the truth, and that it is impossible to encompass all areas of knowledge, then virtue signifies human awareness. Consequently, one must continually seek knowledge. This is the essence of virtue. Virtue is nothing but an enduring call to exercise reason. As the sun rose over Athens in 399 BC, a 70-year-old Socrates stood before his judges, accused of disbelief in the city's gods, introducing new doctrines and corrupting the youth. These charges were not explicitly listed in the lawsuit, yet they were brought up in court, stirring questions among the populace. Plato, present in the courtroom, recorded Socrates' defense in The Defense, his first literary endeavor. Socrates began provocatively, stating his lack of eloquence and his preference for questioning rather than orating. He was conscious of the bias his judges held against him, and he defended himself by explaining his lack of monetary gain from teaching. He earned his livelihood through other professions, not by extorting his students. In response to the accusation of corrupting the youth, Socrates argued that he guided those who erred onto the right path, helping them discover their existence and their relationship with others. His wanderings in the markets and debates were not out of a desire to impose his beliefs, but to raise questions about the purpose of life and how one should live it. Socrates stressed that philosophy is a collaborative activity, a rich subject of discussions among small groups of people arguing to reach the truth. This belief is why Plato presented Socrates' ideas in dialogues, for dialogue was his craft and questioning was his profession. In the last scene of his life, Socrates, sentenced to death, told his students, "I am not saddened by my sentence. In fact, I am happy. While others may see death as the greatest evil, I disagree. I prefer to die free rather than live as a slave." As the dust settled after Socrates' trial and conviction, we find ourselves asking, what is the legacy of this enigmatic philosopher? The influence of Socrates' teachings and methods of inquiry can be traced throughout the history of Western philosophy. His student Plato and Plato's student Aristotle laid the foundation for centuries of philosophical inquiry. Their teachings still resonate today, shaping our understanding of ethics, politics, metaphysics, and more. Socrates' insistence on questioning everything, his dedication to the pursuit of truth, and his belief in the inherent value of rational discourse have become cornerstones of philosophical thought. His fearless embrace of his fate also embodies the philosophical ideal of living an examined life, one that is guided by reason rather than fear or desire. His life and death have been etched onto the annals of history, not as a cautionary tale, but as an inspiring story of a man who dared to question, to think, and to live on his own terms. His legacy continues to challenge us, urging us to question our beliefs, examine our lives, and engage with the world around us in a thoughtful and meaningful way. As we draw this journey through philosophy to a close, let's remember Socrates' parting words to his students. "I am not saddened by my sentence. In fact, I am happy. While others may see death as the greatest evil, I disagree. I prefer to die free rather than live as a slave." This is the spirit of Socrates, the spirit of philosophy. It is a spirit that continues to inspire us to seek truth, to question, and to strive for a life well lived. If you enjoyed this journey through philosophy, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more enlightening content.